Don't worry.
If you give it a few minutes, a few seconds, we're now live on YouTube. Yeah, we're live now.
Anne-Marie?
Got no one waiting to come in at the moment.
Bear with me for a sec. Can somebody make contact, Jeff, with Anne-Marie, because she needs to be in the meeting. So before we start.
I'll just give her a call.
Yes, please. Sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. We just need to have a legal person there before we start.
Chair, while we're waiting, it might be of interest, but when I clicked on the personalized link for me, it took me into an area and it said the host has got another meeting going, and I sat in there for about 15 minutes, and then I used the link that Jeff circulated a few minutes ago and came straight in. So it might be worth, if she's stuck, if she uses Jeff's recently circulated link, because that seemed to work.
Yeah, definitely, Tony. It actually happened to me as well. And I did the actually same thing. I had to go through the process again. So it needs to be updated, I think. If Anne-Marie's struggling to get in, so that's absolutely fine. Any updates, Jeff?
Yeah, I've just asked her to use the new link that was circulated this afternoon.
Thanks, Matt. Do you want to, we can bring Anne-Marie direct.
Message her, but she's not picked up. Hello, are you still struggling to get in?
Yeah, I think Anne-Marie's struggling to get in as well, so I do apologise, guys.
Okay,
She's in. Brilliant. Ah, we've got her. Good. Hi, Anne-Marie. You finally got in.
Finally, yeah. I'm here.
Yeah. Anyway, can we start the meeting? Are you all happy to proceed? Okay, that's absolutely fine. Well, welcome to the Licensing and Public Protection Committee, being held virtually today, the 26th of January at 7 p.m. and it's just past 7 p.m. I do apologise. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and recorded for publication at a later date. May I also ask members, in order to avoid any confusion, that if they wish a vote to be held on any item, that they make me aware of this at the appropriate time. Thank you. May I start by asking if there are any apologies for absence and any members' substitutions taking place this evening, please?
Chairman, Councillor Parker's struggling to get in.
Right.
I think you'll see him appearing in a minute.
Okay. Do you want to give it a couple of seconds? Or I think we'll just carry on with this. If Parker is struggling, then he can actually meet the meeting a bit tonight. Right. Part 1, licensing. Do any members wish to declare an interest in relation to licensing matters on this agenda? No. Minutes of the previous meeting can be found on pages 5 to 10 of your pack. Are members content that these can be taken as read? Thank you, Councillor. Are we all in favour for that? Yes, thank you. That is approved, thank you. Moving to item 4, which can be found on pages 11 to 24 of your pack. This is in relation to establishing a cumulative impact assessment, and Matt will take you through this item, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to request that members discuss and agree to the Council consulting on a cumulative impact assessment which relates to Newcastle Town Centre, and that is it to support the Council's statement of licensing policy. The Council previously resolved to have a cumulative impact policy, a CIP, that covers an area of Newcastle's town centre, and it was first incorporated into the standard statement of licensing policy in July 2013. In April 2019, the committee resolved that the cumulative impact policy should continue in its current form pending transition to what's now called a cumulative impact assessment, a CIA. In October of 2020, the committee resolved to extend the current cumulative impact policy to the 5th of April 2021, and that was to allow for the council to put the CIA process and have that take place. It is proposed that the cumulative impact assessment is required to replace the cumulative impact policy and to have it as a standalone live document that's capable of being amended without without an amendment being required of the statement of licensing policy. In effect and operation, cumulative impact assessment is similar to a cumulative impact policy. However, to move one from the policy to the assessment, there's a couple of things that the local authority need to do. One is that it needs to consult with persons who it consults with in regards to reviews and revisions to the statement of licensing policy as set down in the legislation. It needs to explain why it's considering adopting a cumulative impact assessment. It needs to set out which part or parts of the district should be included in the assessment, set out the type of licenses that it would apply to, and then give the evidential basis for it. In considering the evidential basis for the cumulative impact assessment, the current public health emergency has impacted significantly on both the footfall and the economic activity within the council CIP area. Staffordshire Police have indicated that they're in support of progressing a cumulative impact assessment to replace the policy, and they've submitted statistical data to give the evidential basis that's required to allow the council to undergo the consultation. Excuse me. Just as a sort of a brief overview, because this was considered back in October, cumulative impact assessments do differ slightly in relation to cumulative impact policies in several ways. Firstly, the assessment or the provision to create an assessment is within the Licensing Act itself, whereas the provision for the policy was only in statutory guidance, so it's on a different statutory footing. The evidential basis for cumulative impact assessment can include any premises that carry on or intend to carry on any licensable activity. So that can be the sale of alcohol for both on and off consumption, it can be late night refreshment, and it can be regulated entertainment. And when creating an assessment, the council may choose to limit the type of premises included. So it could be off licenses and nightclubs, takeaways, pubs, or any mixture of the premises types. Whereas when we've had the policy previously, it would only relate to premises that had the sale of alcohol. So there is a wider scope for premises that can be included. At 2.5 and 2.6 of the report, it goes through what the evidential basis that is required to have and publish a cumulative impact assessment. So it's evidence like having local crime and disorder statistics, statistics on local antisocial behaviour, environmental health complaints, residents' questionnaires, evidence from local parish and parish councillors, and then evidence obtained through a local consultation. 2.6, it lists the authorities and the bodies and the persons we would have to consult with, which we would be encouraged to do and we would have to do as part of the consultation process that we're proposing. As I mentioned already, if we're proposing to consult, then we've got to give an indication as to which areas, the reasons for it, and what type of premises that would relate to. Again, as I've indicated already, Staffordshire Police have provided statistical data to the authority as a starting point. The data that they've provided forms the basis of our request to consult upon publishing a cumulative impact assessment. The police have stated that the area covered by the current cumulative impact policy is appropriate for cumulative impact assessment. So in their mind, they're not proposing that it should cover a wider area or indeed a smaller area than what we currently have. The current area overlaps two distinct police reporting areas, which are referred to in this documentation as IB 60 and IB 61, but it does not include or incorporate the entirety of those two areas. You'll see that as Appendix A. There's a copy of a town plan which shows the current area in comparison to IB 60 and IB 61, which are slightly larger. The data that the police have provided, there's two lots. Essentially, it's IB 60 and IB 61. Those extracts are at Appendix B, so you can see the full extracts there. And then at Appendix C, it's data that covers the whole of Newcastle Borough, including those two areas within the town centre. When we've reviewed and implemented the policy in the past, the police have provided data only for that town centre area, the IB 60 and IB 61, but having the whole borough data allows for comparison to be made. In Appendix B, Figure 1, it shows the number of incidents in financial years from 2015
back in the room
through to now, and most recently from April to November 2020. It's then further broken down into what they call daytime and nighttime, and it shows that the total number of incidents has increased year on year until it dropped slightly in 2019-20. The data in April and November 2020 is prorated, and that has reduced sort of dramatically, presumably down to the results of the pandemic. Figure 2 shows antisocial behaviour incidents, which are included within the larger figure for the same geographical areas and times and periods. Figures 3 to 5 show the breakdown and concentration of when all crime happened and occurred in IB 60 and 61 over the last two full financial years and April to November 2020. It shows when the worst times for certain incidents are, so typically between midnight and 3 o'clock on Fridays, midnight and 2 o'clock on Saturdays, and then Figure 4 shows the worst time for an instance being between midnight and 3 on Fridays, midnight and 1 o'clock on Saturdays, and Figure 5 shows which is the most recent times, that still a large number on Friday and Saturday evenings between midnight and 1 a.m, but generally through the pandemic period, the incidents have been lower and spread more evenly across the week. In Appendix C, the figures cover the same time frames, the same dates, but cover the whole area, the whole borough, I should say, in comparison to just the IB 60 and IB 61. Again, it does show, it highlights particular times when it's worse, for instance. So it's midnight to 1 a.m. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. In 2018-19, 2019-20 is midnight to 1 a.m. Thursday and Friday, and quite high at other times of the week and Friday evenings. And in the most recent figures, it still relates to midnight and 1 o'clock on Saturday nights, although again it is split and it's high over certain other little parts of the week. At 2.13, I've included a table which the figures have been taken from the appendices, in relation to the types of offence, an incident that would normally be considered and looked at when considering a cumulative impact policy or assessment. We've considered violent crimes, we've considered antisocial behaviour, public order as well. And the latest figures are 8 months of figures rather than a 12-month figure. Excuse me. And then it also shows a 2.14, a summary of percentages and increases and decreases. So within the IB60 and IB61 area, in relation to antisocial behaviour, other violence, public order incidents, they have increased over the last 2 financial years, with the other violent crimes having decreased. And then at 2.15, the data contained within appendices B and C, alongside the data in the tables above, do appear to show that levels of crime and antisocial behaviour remain high throughout the borough, but specifically in the areas known as IB60 and 61, which the police refer to as the town centre, which covers the area of the current cumulative impact policy. And whilst figures have decreased across the borough generally, there does appear to have been an increase in the town centre in relation to incidents around violence, antisocial behaviour and public order, predominantly in times associated with the nighttime economy. So the proposal we're putting to you today is that members note the information that we've had provided to us from Staffordshire Police in support of progressing a cumulative impact assessment, which will have the effect of replacing what is our current cumulative impact policy. We're asking that members agree to a consultation period being carried out in relation to having a cumulative impact assessment in line with the processes outlined above, and for that consultation period be for a period of 4 weeks. And that members agree to have the results of the consultation brought back to them at the March meeting to determine whether or not a cumulative impact assessment is required, and if so, the scope of it and the implementation details for it. So options for members, excuse me, are for the council to gather and review evidence justifying the adoption of the cumulative impact assessment of the area that forms the current CIP. The alternative is to not consult upon the cumulative impact assessment if you don't feel that there's enough evidence or an evidential basis to support consultation. If you have any questions, councillors, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, Matt. Does any members wish to speak on this item, please? Councillor Kieran.
Thanks, Chair. It's not specifically a question about the process itself, but we've extended the existing CIP to the 5th of April. Just listening to the timeline that you've outlined there, Mr. Burton, are we confident that the consultation is going to be carried out, the report back to this committee, and then taking action to actually develop and implement the CIA? Are we confident that we'll be able to do all that before the 5th of April? Or is there the possibility we might want to think about extending the CIP for slightly longer?
Thank you, Councillor Kieran. We are confident that as long as we start our consultation shortly, if that is the decision that is made, then we will be able to carry out the 4 weeks consultation with the appropriate people and to formulate a response, an assessment to bring back for the 16th of March. If we weren't able to do that, then there isn't really scope for us to extend the cumulative impact policy, because the provisions are that we have to either end the cumulative impact policy when it ends, or when the 3 years after the legislation came into force, which will be the 5th of April 2021. So if we were not successful in meeting the timeline, which we think we will be able to do, then we would be without the cumulative impact policy for a period.
Thank you. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair. I move that we
approve this and get the study undertaken forthwith, so that we don't fall foul of the timelines that Councillor Kieran pointed out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak on this item, please? No. So can this item be received? Thank you. Now, moving to item 5, which can be found on pages 25 to 28. These are the minutes of licensing subcommittees meetings. Does anybody wish to speak, or can they be accepted? They be accepted. Is everybody happy with that? Good. Yeah. Part 2, public protection. Does anyone want to declare any interest in relation to public protection matters on this agenda? No. Moving to item 7, this is for statutory taxi and private hire standards and policy, which can be found on pages 29 to 120 of your pack. I think, Matt, you will take us through the report, please.
Yes, thank you again, Chair. The purpose of this report is for members to review the consultation response received in respect of the draft taxi policy, and to discuss and agree any amendments to the proposed policy following that consultation. As you'd be aware, in July 2020, the government published some new statutory guidance for the first time in relation to taxi and private hire licensing, which was discussed by members in October. The new guidance followed a number of high-profile inquiries into serious sexual offences facilitated, and in some cases perpetrated by taxi trade, and research into data regarding abuse and exploitation of children and vulnerable adults and the taxi industry. And I'm happy to say the industry sort of moved on quite a long way from then, given the J and the Casey reports. What it does is the licensing authorities are now placed under a legal duty to have regard to this new guidance and to reflect it in their taxi licensing policies and procedures. It is anticipated there'll be additional guidance to follow these standards in time to reflect the changes in technology that are ever ongoing within the trade, and how the public often interact with them as well. Again, you'll be aware that the council's current taxi licensing policy was first implemented on the 1st of November 2019. It compares quite well to the new statutory guidance, and as such, we've only had to make a few changes, a few minor changes to align the standards along with our policy. At the October meeting, members agreed to consult for a period of 4 weeks on a proposed implementation, which included the statutory standards, several minor other amendments, and then some improvement and some typographical errors that required some changes. At the table in 2.1, I won't take you through, it's the same table as in October. That highlights the areas and the pages where we've changed the policy to fit with the statutory standards, the guidance, and also those minor amendments that we've also mentioned. So 2.3 of the report. During the consultation period, which was sent out to the trade, we've received one representation. It was received from Uber, who are one of the licensed private operators here and nationally, and a copy of their representation is attached to Appendix 2. In essence, their response was in relation to 2 sections that we had changed, which were due to the standards, and that was to do with bookings to be kept by private hire operators, where the standards had required that bookings should include the name of the person who had taken the booking in those booking records. And Uber's proposal was that that's absolutely fine, apart from where methods and bookings are taken through a computerized or digital method. And where that's the case, that can be highlighted, but there wouldn't necessarily be an individual attributed to that, because there wouldn't be a a person who's been involved in the booking. So officers have agreed with the situation and a suggestion. We've amended the proposed policy document, which is at Appendix 1, to reflect that. And we included it in bold at line U in the table above, just to, just to show where it is those changes have been made. Other than that, the policy document is as it was proposed in October. So what we're asking for members today is to note the contents of the report. The members consider the amendments that we've proposed in Appendix 1 to the taxi policy 2019 to 21, arising of those issues and any member feedback. The members consider those minor amendments that we've had from the consultation in Appendix 2. The members approve the documented Appendix 1 to be the final taxi policy document, and that we have an implementation date of the 1st of April 2021. Again, if there are any questions, Chair, happy to take them.
Thank you, Matt, for that. Do any members have any questions or comments, please?
Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. No, I'd just like one comment, really. It's not a question. I think the fact that this committee spent an enormous amount of time over this taxi policy over the last couple of years, making it as good as we can. I think the fact that we've only had one comment and the officers have taken that on board and changed it, I think is credit. And I'm very, very happy to support this and move it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Are members content that the recommendation as set out in the report is accepted? Is this resolved?
Yes. Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you. The next item is item 8 on your agenda in relation to the proposed taxi fees and charges for 2021 to 2022 and can be found on pages 121 to 136 of your pack. I will ask Nesta to take us through this, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members received a report on the 12th of October proposing the fees and charges for taxi licences for the year or the financial year 2021 to 2022. Members at that meeting agreed for these fees to be sent out for consultation, and this has been completed, and this report is to come back to you to advise you of the representations that have been received and also to set the fees and charges for next year. In terms of the representations, 2 of those were received from from private hire operators, and 1 was from the Hackney Carriage Trade Association, and 1 was from a licensing consultant. These are shown in full in Appendix A to D, which are on pages 129 to 136 of your report. But they are actually summarised in paragraphs 2.4 to 2.6 of your report, and I'll just go through those for you. So Appendix A is from a local private hire operators, and the basis of their objection relates to the recent and ongoing changes in the taxi industry that allows for drivers and vehicle holders to choose which area they license with, but still work in Newcastle Borough area, and that an increase in the fees may result in the current licence holders looking to licence themselves elsewhere. The other 3 representations in Appendices B to D are very similar and appear to be based on a shared document. Appendix B is from another private hire operator, Appendix C is from the Hackney Carriage Association, and Appendix D is from Trent Licensing Consultants. And the basis of these representation is that there is no justification to increase the fees as proposed, and the cost of administering the service has not increased. They've also stated that the service provided has got progressively worse, and that due to the pandemic, many of the trade are suffering financially, and some have been temporarily stopped working. In addition, they have suggested that the consultation should be postponed or take place again in the new year to allow for a wider response. In the October report, it was detailed that the primary reason for proposing an increase in terms of some of these fees was due to staffing fees that have increased, and also the total number of licenses which has decreased. The fees proposed are shown in table 3.1 of your report, which covers from page 124 to 126. And the recommendations that we're asking members to consider this evening are that the committee considers the proposed fees, that the committee considers the responses received during the consultation and propose any amendments to the fees and charges which may arise from that consultation, and that the fees be approved for 2021-2022 financial year. I'm happy to take any questions in relation to that, Chair.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions or comments, please? Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, a couple of things. I saw a local paper today with a headline of up to 17%, up to the two biggest words in English language, I think, up to. It's actually 3 out of 43 that up to 17%. The rest appear to be sort of nothing, 3 or 6% or something. But I think there's also a lot of things on this report, they're not going to happen. They're as and when, if you like. PHO application fee, yeah, fair enough. Add remove director. Well, if you don't add remove director, you're not going to have a fee to pay. Copy replacement license. Don't use license. You're not going to have a fee to pay. Basic DBS hasn't changed. Dual driver badge 3 years. Yeah, fair point. But it's over 3 years. It's 6%. So presumably it's 2% a year. Change of address as and when. Replacement badge as and when. Replacement vehicle badge as and when. Reissue replacement badge with a minute as and when. DBS CRB check nil. DBS CRB check online nil. Safeguarding training, yes, 3%. Failure to attend safeguarding as and when. Exemption certificates, yes. Knowledge test, fail to attend knowledge test as and when. Replacement safeguarding training certificate as and when. Change of name as and when. There's a lot of stuff here that's the scenario that all these rises are going to hit every taxi driver in the borough are simply infatuous, really. It is the vast majority of these things either aren't going to happen or will only happen on a one basis over a 3 year cycle. That's a point I'd like to make, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm listening to Councillor Sweeney there. It doesn't make sense what he's actually saying, because people, or taxi drivers, not many of them, have gone against said that really what they're suffering this year, and we all know that, and a lot of people have suffered with loss of income. And if you look in the town centre, and I go down the town centre, they've lost a considerable lot of money. And any increase, in my view, as and when, isn't I can't support. So I just put my 2 pennies in there, Mr. Chairman, as and when. So I don't agree with any rise in costs to the licensing trade, taxi driving licensing trade. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Jew Williams. Jill, can you put your off mute?
Yeah, I'm off mute now. I haven't got any questions. I do think at this present moment in time, what the taxi drivers are going through and the organisations, I wouldn't like to see an increase, I'll be perfectly honest.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering, the costs that we pass on to private hire operators, drivers, taxi drivers, etc., are just to recover our costs. So if we don't pass these costs on, which are the minimum costs, we hope that that means we have to take the money from somewhere else, perhaps staff cuts to make up for it. I was wondering if the Councillor John Williams would be happy that we make staff cuts rather than put the taxi drivers' rates up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Do members have any more questions or comments, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Williams.
It just come back again, it's very nice of Kev Sutton to make these comments. But again, within the organisation, money has been given by government because of the COVID situation that we are in. And it's my understanding that money is in to help businesses to get through this terrible thing that we're going through. To answer Councillor Hutton, that's my answer to him. And again, you know, this thing of, oh yeah, you know, this attitude I find quite upsetting, really. And I'll stick by what I said in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Michael Chesky. If you're on mute, Mark, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was on mute. Yeah, I think that obviously it is a difficult time at the moment, isn't it, to try and impose an increase in costs on anybody, particularly when trading conditions are so poor. And probably it's a question really for Nesta, really, in so much that if we don't impose these increases tonight, how will we balance the books? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I can respond. Obviously, as the report goes into, the licence fees are based on cost recovery. And obviously, if we don't recover our costs, then in essence, we provide a subsidy in relation to the activity that we're undertaking. And those funds would have to be met from elsewhere within the council to be able to subsidise this particular service. So they are based on cost recovery. There's case law that determines that that's how the fees for this should be undertaken and how they should be calculated. It is to cover all the costs involved in running that particular service. Thank you.
Okay, do any members wish to vote on this for fees or no fees?
I think we're going to need a vote, aren't we, Chairman?
I think so. So let's vote on this then. So we'll start with Councillor Michael Chesky.
No increase, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Jew Williams.
No increase, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Ruth Wright. Sorry, Councillor Ruth, I didn't get you there.
No increase, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Williams.
No increase, Chair.
And Councillor Jill Heeson. Jill, can you put off mute? Sorry, Jill, can you repeat that?
I'm voting for an increase.
Right. Councillor Tony Kieran.
No increase, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Graham Hutton.
Increase, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Parker.
I'll vote for an increase, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Jew Waring.
I support the increase, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Walklett.
No increase, Chair.
Thank you.
Just a recommendation there.
Okay, so it's 4 is 4 and against is 6.
Chairman, you haven't asked me.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Sweeney, I do apologise.
Increase, please.
So that makes that 7. That's absolutely fine. So it makes it 5. So 4 is 5 and against is 6. Anne-Marie, is that okay with you?
About his vote.
Chair, what's your vote? Sorry.
Yeah.
Abstain, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
He could have swung that. Because he's ever casting vote.
Right, okay. We now move to part 3 of the agenda, which is a closed session. This is to resolve that members of the public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the report because it is likely that there is this disclosure of exemptive information as defined in paragraphs 1, 2 and 7 in part 1 of the schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Can I ask the officer to stop broadcasting and remove any members of the public once confirmed that we can go on. So there's no members of the public, are we?
No members of the public. I'm just ending the stream now, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you know when it's gone off.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Stream finished.